continue to get better, and that's what the Sky's doing.
Boy, Carrington is on fire. She's got the last 7 points in Wintrust tonight. Kia Nurse again.
The dashboard clock in Brent Clark's old, weather-worn pickup truck glowed faintly, its hands marking the time as 11:47 p.m. when he finally pulled into the wide, dimly lit car park of the Target Center in Minneapolis, the snow falling in heavy sheets and swirling through the beams of the headlights. His body ached from the long drive, his eyes stung with exhaustion, and yet a quiet satisfaction settled over him as he glanced at the small figure beside him. His 8-year-old daughter, Caitlin, was fast asleep in the passenger seat, her head tilted against the window, soft breaths fogging the glass, and in her little hand, she still clutched the handwritten sign she had so carefully made earlier that day with her favorite purple crayon. The words, "My amor is my hero," were slightly smudged, but unmistakably heartfelt, a child's unfiltered devotion made visible. She had fallen asleep not long after they had left Des Moines, the rhythmic hum of the tires lulling her, unaware that her father had braved 6 long hours of treacherous roads, snow-slick motorways, and the kind of bitter winter winds that clawed at every inch of exposed skin. He had done it because earlier that week, when Caitlin had been watching a televised Minnesota Lynx game, he had seen something in her eyes, a spark of possibility, a gleam that every parent secretly prays to see at least once, the unmistakable fire of genuine inspiration. He had seen her sit upright, wide-eyed, her little hands clutching a notebook, as though she wasn't simply watching basketball but learning something vital about life itself, as though each shot, pass, and rebound carried meaning she needed to study. And Brent, weary from another long day of laying bricks and pouring concrete at his construction job, had felt a stirring in his chest, the instinctive recognition that some moments in a child's life are simply too important to leave to chance. A father's love has a peculiar way of defying logic. It drives men to sacrifice sleep, comfort, money, and practicality, because somewhere deep within, they understand that time moves quickly, that the window for shaping a child's belief in themselves is painfully brief. He knew that Caitlin, just 8 years old, would not remain a little girl forever. He also knew that one night, one unforgettable night, could plant a seed in her that might grow for the rest of her life. And so, even though most people would have called him reckless for driving through a snowstorm with his daughter in tow, he had not hesitated. He had been planning this trip in secret for weeks, ever since he had quietly searched the Lynx schedule and found that they would be playing at home against the Seattle Storm in December, and that tickets were still within reach. In his pocket, tucked safely inside his worn denim jacket, he carried something even more precious than those tickets, a letter he had written to Maya Moore, folded neatly, the paper slightly creased from being opened and rewritten several times. It was not a fan letter in the ordinary sense. It was a father's confession, a testament to the faith he carried in his daughter's potential, a way of saying, "I believe in her, even if she doesn't fully believe in herself yet." Brent had never been a man given to sentimentality. His life of hard labor and responsibility rarely allowed it. But this letter had poured out of him late one night at the kitchen table when the house was quiet, a combination of exhaustion and love stripping away the usual barriers that kept his feelings guarded. As he parked and turned off the ignition, the silence of the snow-covered lot wrapped around the truck like a blanket, and he took a moment to simply watch Caitlin sleep, her small hand still gripping her sign, her notebook full of Maya Moore's statistics tucked away in her backpack. It had been that notebook, after all, that had truly pushed him into action. 3 nights earlier, he had come home to find Caitlin at the kitchen table, her legs dangling from the chair, her face lit by the soft glow of the overhead light. She hadn't noticed him at first. She was too busy copying down numbers from the television broadcast, field goals, assists, rebounds, into the notebook she had decorated with doodles of basketballs and stars. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, her pencil smudging the paper, her little tongue poking out of the corner of her mouth the way it always did when she was deeply focused. Brent had stood there silently for a moment, watching her, and what he saw had struck him to the core. It wasn't just that she loved basketball, it was the way she was studying it, as if she were trying to crack some secret code, to absorb not only the statistics but the essence of what made Maya more exceptional. When she finally looked up, her eyes had been bright with a question she could not keep inside. "Dad," she had asked softly, almost timidly, "do you think I'll ever be good enough to play like Maya Moore?" The words had landed like a blow to his chest, not because he doubted her, but because he could feel the vulnerability behind them, the fragile yearning of a child who is beginning to understand the difference between dreams and reality. At 8 years old, Caitlin was already standing out on youth basketball courts, her instincts sharper, her shot cleaner, her understanding of the game more advanced than most children her age. Coaches had already begun to notice, to tell Brent that she had something rare, but talent is not the same as greatness, and even Caitlin seemed to understand this truth, though she could not yet articulate it. She was searching for the missing ingredient, something beyond natural ability, and she had chosen Maya Moore as her guide. Brent, who remembered his own youthful attempts at sport, knew that what his daughter needed more than anything was to witness greatness not from afar, not through a screen, but up close, in the flesh, where she could feel the energy of the crowd, hear the sneakers squeak on the hardwood, see the speed and strength with her own eyes. That is why, despite the absurdity of it all, he had made the decision to pack her into the truck after dinner, bundle her in a blanket, and head north through the blizzard. He had packed flasks of coffee for himself, juice boxes for her, and a bag of crisp she had insisted on bringing, even though she had fallen asleep long before they could be opened. Every mile of that journey had been worth it, because Brent understood something most people overlook. Children rarely remember ordinary days, but they always remember the extraordinary ones. He wanted this night to be etched in her memory forever, the night she not only saw her hero but touched the dream she was chasing. What neither of them could know was how profound this night would become. Not only because Caitlin would indeed get to watch Maya Moore play with brilliance and grace, but because, after the game, through a series of small miracles and kind strangers, she would receive a hug from Maya herself, a simple embrace that carried a weight far greater than either of them could have understood at the time. That hug would plant a seed deep within Caitlin, one that would grow quietly but steadily, shaping her into the kind of player and person who would one day step onto courts of her own and inspire millions in return. Brent had not told Caitlin about the letter in his pocket, nor about the hours he had spent imagining how he might pass it to Maya, whether through an usher, a coach, or perhaps by sheer luck. He only knew that he needed to try, because in his heart he believed that if Maya Moore could see the fire in his daughter's eyes, she would understand.
Hard and be competitive. She doesn't want to drop off. Tiffany Hayes.
And that first game, rust.
Yes.
And I think
Brent Clark had been quietly watching the way his daughter's relationship with basketball was changing, shifting from the innocent enjoyment of a game to something far deeper, approaching the kind of obsession that hinted at a calling. He saw how Caitlin studied game footage with unusual intensity for an 8-year-old, how she spent hours in their driveway after school, dribbling until the daylight disappeared and the porch light had to be switched on, how she spoke about Maya Moore with a reverence that was not just the admiration of a child, but the devotion of someone who had found a guiding star. Brent knew instinctively that his daughter needed to see her hero in person, to witness greatness not through a television screen but with her own eyes, and so, without much discussion, he told his wife and that he was taking Caitlin on a father-daughter adventure and that they would be home by Sunday night. At 5 o'clock on Saturday morning, he filled the truck with petrol, packed a small bag, and gently woke Caitlin with the promise of a surprise trip. The 6-hour drive through Iowa and into snowy Minnesota became a journey neither would ever forget, filled with questions from Caitlin about dreams, about what made athletes truly great, and stories from Brent about his own college playing days, about discipline, perseverance, and the value of having heroes who force you to believe in bigger possibilities. When she asked, as they crossed the state line, why he had decided to take this trip, his answer was both simple and profound, because he saw something special in her when she played, and because he believed seeing Maya in person would help her understand what was possible if she was willing to work for it. What Caitlin did not know was that in his jacket pocket Brent carried a carefully written letter to Maya, explaining his daughter's admiration, her dedication to the sport, and her dream of one day playing at the highest level. That evening, inside the Target Center, the game unfolded like a masterclass, Maya Moore in peak form, scoring 28 points with an effortless grace that left Caitlin transfixed. She watched every pass, every movement, whispering to her father during a timeout. She's even better in person. Look how she talks to everyone, how she makes them better just by being there. Brent realized, with swelling pride, that his daughter was not just watching the spectacle, but absorbing the intangibles that separate good players from great ones. Yet what truly defined the trip happened after the game, when Brent, summoning all his courage, approached a staff member, handed him the letter,